So it's widely acknowledged within the Formula One paddock that Ferrari have what should be considered the strongest or one of the strongest driver lineups, but it could very well be changing come the end of 2024 due to a combination of factors, but mainly one man, that is, of course, Carlos Sainz being unhappy with his position at the team. And the replacement that is being targeted is a rather surprising one because Ferrari are targeting Alex Albon, who's actually working wonders at Williams, but doesn't scream top driver. So again, there's a lot of things which are kind of on my mind, kind of on Gargi's mind as well. So we thought we'd talk you guys through this, figure out where exactly it is we see Ferrari going with this, pros and cons to such a decision, and why it is we're even reaching this decision in the first place.
Yes, so let's talk about it, right? Let's look at all the problems that Ferrari has had in the past couple years, or let's say in the past 3 years since Carlos has been in the Ferrari paddock. To begin with, it's always been very, very clear that Charles Leclerc is the number one driver.
Undisputed.
Undisputed. And it is already being said, it is widely, accepted at this moment that Charles is the number one driver, and Ferrari is looking towards a more Charles-centric future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is true because that's how it's always been. Because Charles is their number one driver. How many times am I going to say that?
Yeah.
But that's what happened. But when you look at Carlos's struggles, especially that have been highlighted significantly in this season or in the past few races, to be precise. Look at what happened when he got a penalty. It was clear that he was very frustrated at that moment, and it takes not a lot to kind of let that pent up anger and that pent up frustration go. And then we've seen what happened at Austria and what kind of quotes came out of Carlos Sainz at that moment, because he kept saying that
team orders, he wasn't really happy with it.
Making me look like a fool. Those are not things that you say easily, It takes a lot of things to happen behind the scenes for a driver like Carlos Sainz. By the way, Carlos Sainz is a very respected and a very reputable driver who's never been in trouble, never been in drama or whatsoever. So it takes a lot for someone like a driver like Carlos Sainz to come out and say these things.
Exactly.
So I'm guessing it's already, the water above his head at this point. And it's not too...
it's not looking too good right now,
It's not looking too good, and it's not too, unfair or scandalous to believe at this point that Carlos may as well leave Ferrari at this point.
Yeah, but see, again, I understand this feeling, and truth be told, as I always said, F1 is one very unique sport in the sense wherein you're operating with a team dynamic, but chasing individual glory can be easier said than done to balance that. Yeah, there's no good balance, but there's also how many realistically good options for a Carlos Sainz in this immediate future. Again, if you're talking about top teams, you have to remember he was part of the Red Bull Junior Drivers program.
Part of McLaren.
Yeah, so again, Red Bull probably won't have any interest in having him back, even though, fun fact, he was teammates with Max Verstappen when they were together at Toro Rosso. So there's something there. Has been at McLaren, don't think he's going back. I don't, in fact, think McLaren would be a step up. Beyond that, it's maybe a Mercedes. Do I see him going to a Mercedes? No.
Not happening. With George Russell there, it's not happening.
And not just that, I think if they have to target anyone else, it would either be someone like a Lando Norris or ironically even Charles. If they have to once, someone like Lewis decides to hang up his helmet.
Toto speaks highly of Charles.
Oh yes, very much so.
Yeah.
So I don't see them going for Carlos unless they want a dependable number 2, the same way they did with Bottas. But even then, if Sainz has to leave Ferrari to go from being a number 2 to a better paid number 2, I don't think would be his ambition. Surely he would want to be winning races.
And when you look at his career progression, it's quite clear. At McLaren, they were always, Lando was treated as the number one driver. It has magnified now because since he's the more experienced driver right now in their
In the team,
paddock,
yeah.
in the team. But when you look at Carlos at McLaren, he was the number 2. At Ferrari, he was the number 2. I don't remember Toro Rosso's situation at that moment.
Well, considering the fact that Max was and
So-
is the golden boy for Red Bull, he was, remember, Carlos is pretty much an afterthought. In fact, when they sent him to Renault, it was pretty much on a loan deal. Then eventually he kind of left that behind, then went to McLaren. He's grafted a lot, and I'll give him that credit. But again, do I see a team necessarily transforming him into a number 1? Maybe if it's a newer team, like say we know for a fact, look, his contract runs out in 24. 2026, you have an Audi entering the market. Would they want Carlos Sainz? Sure, maybe. Is he going to be their lead driver? I don't know. But that's the thing. Unless you can convince the team without a shadow of a doubt that you can be that lead driver, it doesn't matter which team you're in.
Yeah, and I don't want to say this, but this is something F1 is known for. You know, you have powerful connections, you have money, you're going to make it in F1. And when I look back onto the Toro Rosso situation, of course, Carlos Sainz's father,
Carlos Sainz
Senior, is also a very respected driver, but he wasn't very involved with Formula 1 in his days.
No, even now, in fact, I've seen him and Carlos when they drive. It's mostly rallying.
He was a rally driver.
Exactly.
But when we talk about, of course, Max Verstappen, Jos Verstappen, he is, a very, very powerful man in the F1 circuit.
I mean, considering he never won a race, I don't know how powerful he is.
But he has a legacy,
Yeah, but he has a legacy, and more importantly, Red Bull always backed Max unequivocally. Remember, Max almost joined the Mercedes junior driver lineup. The only reason he didn't was because Red Bull said, we'll have you in an F1 car in 2 years.
Yeah.
So they backed him unequivocally in that regard. Mercedes couldn't give him that guarantee. So that is also been a thing that, I think it's a mutual relationship of trust, wherein Max knows without a shadow of a doubt that the team does revolve around me. It doesn't matter if there's a Perez, if there's a Ricardo, if there's an Albon, there's a Gasly.
He's never under threat.
Exactly. Unless a driver can legitimately come in there and challenge his authority in terms of being as consistently good.
Yeah.
Not happening. It's the same in a lot of these teams, even Mercedes for that matter. Right now, of course, they still have Lewis Hamilton, but the fact that you have a George Russell, someone whose career you've supported through the juniors, makes it very clear that he'll be the guy they'll look to build around long term the day Hamilton says, I'm done.
Yeah.
Same with Ferrari. That's what they did with Charles. That's what McLaren did with Lando. So again, his options are limited. There is slim pickings, and if I were him, considering the fact that I'm already at a top team, I would probably look to stick there and say, look, I'm going to prove this wrong. Okay, I know right now they're not in a situation where they can be competing for races, or race wins rather, but I'd still give it a little bit more time because again, as I said, options are slim. There aren't that many options right now. Even if you assume for 1 second that Hamilton is done by 24 or 25, is there a guarantee that Mercedes go for Carlos? I don't think so.
Yeah, and when we talk about the actual rumor itself, we haven't actually spoken in the debate so far. So there's a rumor going around, or let's not even call it a rumor. There's an actual report about it. People have spoken about it, and it is that Carlos Sainz will be parting ways with Ferrari, and who will be replacing him? It is being said that it will be Alex Albon.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing because again, the replacement also, and I'm a real big fan of Alex Albon. I like the guy a lot. I think he was unfairly treated to an extent at Red Bull. Of course, that can be said about a lot of drivers. But Alex Albon right now is just about starting to kind of revive his career in Williams after having to spend a year out of the sport. And he's doing rather well. Now, of course, I know Ferrari's allure, but if they're signing him, then surely that's as clear-cut an indication as any that they want someone who can be there to get the good points, but not necessarily challenge Charles.
Be a supporting,
exactly.
Take on a supporting role for Charles.
Exactly.
And that's what Alex Albon has done at Red Bull as well when he was alongside Max.
Yeah, he was pretty much the support driver.
Yeah, and he started off in a Williams, right?
No, he started off in Toro Rosso because he was part of the
Toro Rosso, same color scheme. Yeah, so he started off in Toro Rosso, and I remember when he showed immense potential in that Toro Rosso. But then, as soon as he moved to that Red Bull, I don't know what happened to him. He started crashing a lot.
There was pressure, and I think the car was always designed in a way that Max was able to get the best out of it.
That's true.
You've seen a lot of drivers struggle with it. You've seen Gasly struggle with it. You've seen even Perez struggle with it. The kind of setup or the kind of car that Max likes Yes, it's very speedy, but it's not everyone's cup of tea. Not everyone can handle it. Perez is also, you're seeing it now, you're seeing it last year, not quite able to manage cars or get the same out of it that a Verstappen can do. That's not to say that Red Bull are developing around Verstappen. They know that that's a quick concept and Verstappen is able to live with those car concepts. But we've seen that problem happen. And just because you fail at Red Bull doesn't mean you're a bad driver. You see how well he's doing leading this Williams team right now.
Yeah.
But again, is it too much too soon? Do you not want to maybe give him a couple of years to prove that he can consistently do that? Because again, when he got promoted to Red Bull, my first thought was, yeah, it's probably too soon. And it proved.
It did prove that because Alex Albon's inexperience really showed in that Red Bull. And that Red Bull is not for the faint-hearted,
No.
Even Checo is sort of struggling with it.
He's been struggling with it since 21, I'll be honest with you.
And then Christian Horner and
Helmut Marko
coming out and saying that Checo's the only one who survived next to Max Verstappen for a whole year is it telling,
Yes.
it's very telling of what that Red Bull is like, because saying that someone, your number 2 driver, has survived is not a great thing. I mean, I get it, Max Verstappen is the best driver on the grid as of now. He's got a rocket of a car, but then you can't just sacrifice one driver for the other, even if it's Max Verstappen.
And that's what Red Bull have been doing a lot. But anyway, back to Ferrari. Alex Albon to Ferrari. I don't know. I get that the temptation for him would be that, okay, if I'm getting a call from another top team, I'll jump and make the most of it. But if I were him, I'd want to see how he does in this Williams car for at least another season. And again, this is one of those moves where I'm wondering, like, who's benefiting from this? The only person who would be relieved would be Charles. Because, and again, no disrespect to Carlos Sainz, I don't see him being able to, in equal machinery, challenge Charles. Because I think Charles has that kind of raw pace which only true world champion contenders have. But, again, Albon would be a much lesser test.
Yeah, and when we also talk about Carlos and what could come next for him, Ferrari is, say what you may, and
a lot has been said.
A lot has been said, and I understand that Ferrari is not doing well for the past, I don't know how many years, but it still holds a legacy, and it is still one of the giants of the sport.
Yeah.
And then where is Carlos moving from here? Because he can't go to Mercedes. No. He's not going to Red Bull. No. Where
McLaren,
can he go?
no.
McLaren, no. He's not going backwards.
If the top 3 teams you have, 2 of the teams are exactly that. So
anything after this will be a downgrade for him.
Yes, I mean, look at it. The best example would be when Valtteri Bottas left Mercedes.
Yes.
Everyone said, where could he go? And I said, there's only 2 places. He's either going back to Williams or he's going to Alfa Romeo, where you knew there was a vacancy. And what happened? He went to Alfa Romeo. Once you were out of that top car, and if you're not deemed good enough to be consistently competing with the standard of that team, in that case Lewis Hamilton, you're only going backwards. There's nowhere to go but down once you leave a top team. So I think that also is a note of caution I would be looking to exercise if I were Carlos. And again, it is worth remembering that all of this is first off a rumor. Second, Carlos may very well choose to extend because his deal expires at the end of 2024. It's a lot of time for that as of yet. But if this were to happen, oh boy, I don't know. I think it would be one of the weirder things that we've seen. But we've seen a lot of strange things in F1.
Yeah. So to sum it up, there are reports going around that Carlos is leaving Ferrari in 2024 and the replacement will be Alex Albon. So let's see what happens. I think there could be a lot of truth behind this because it just doesn't come up out of nowhere.
Unless it's a Hamilton to Ferrari deal, which just has to happen every year.
I think that's like birthed from trolls.
Yeah, every year.
Yeah, every year. It's just meme accounts at this point.
Yeah. So that's it. That's how we feel about this. And I think we came to a consensus that whilst it probably would be a good move, it's probably strange as well. How do you guys feel about it? You can let us know in the comments below. And don't forget, like, share, subscribe, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment as well. And follow. And don't forget to,
download the Sportsak app.
Follow us across socials as well. Right now, though, from Gargi and me, it's goodbye.